Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Swamp Thing. A great episode, a lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I really appreciate we kind of get like immediate, like kind of, what would, like, see what kind of Swamp Thing's physical nature really is, because I was curious, like, okay, so like, what is he like underneath all that? And like, obviously, like, because obviously Alec doesn't know what he is, so he starts pulling away at parts of himself, and it's almost like basically the plant is all there is. It's almost like there's, because I was wondering, is like there's gonna be like a decayed like human flesh underneath, or is it just gonna be like a skeleton? Like, it never really crossed my mind to really think about it, but then he starts pulling away at it, and it's like there's nothing underneath. All there is just plant upon plant upon plant. Maybe to it, well, because just from what it showed, it didn't look like it necessarily seemed like there was any like bone or flesh underneath. It just seemed like there was just more seaweed or whatever it is that his body is, consists of. I just thought that was kind of interesting. But a real interesting thing is it seems like there's a connection between Alec and Susie. What's it? Because it almost seemed like her condition actually got better. She didn't seem like she was as kind of deathly sick as she was before. So it makes you wonder, like, I mean, what's the connection there? Like, is there just kind of like some psychic link between Alec and Susie? Does it even stop with Susie? Anyone that's infected, does Alec have a connection with? Like, is there kind of a psychic connection for, maybe that's kind of how he knows what's going around, Marie. Maybe it's like everyone who gets a little sick, maybe they get better after a while and it kind of like, it becomes one with their system. Or maybe Susie's just, special in that regard. Maybe you could make the argument, maybe the swamp kind of chose her like it chose Alec to a certain extent. It did what it did to him, so maybe it's kind of doing a similar thing to Susie. We don't know for sure, because the fact is, this is still unknown territory in many different regards. So I just thought that was kind of fascinating in itself. So, I mean, I'm skipping around, but obviously, like, the fact is she went out there and, to the swamp and everything, because she's trying to get to him, because she can sense him. It's like he's hurting himself, he's afraid, he doesn't understand what's happening to him. And obviously, sadly, she witnessed that murder that took place on the boat, because those people that were hired by Avery, one of them ended up hooking that, was he a game warden? Ended up hooking him in the face. I was like, ugh! So that was pretty gnarly. And then the dude chasing after Alec, and Alex summoned up the roots. They stabbed him, impaled him. Didn't stop there. The moment started grabbing his limbs, I'm like, is that about to do what I think? And split, ripped into pieces. I was like, oh my god. I kind of expected it, but still, once again, pretty damn gnarly. I was like, holy crap. That was brutal as hell. I also do, like, obviously, like, because I was wondering about that too, because it seems like, I guess it's a combination of him being able to heal himself, but I think also the swamp itself heals him, because, like, pieces from his body, I guess if the wound's small enough, he can kind of regenerate on his own. But if it's not, like, I guess he can go back to the swamp, and the swamp will just naturally heal him too. So, because it filled into pieces he had ripped off, but during the fight after getting stabbed. So I think that's kind of interesting too. I think that kind of shows that it's not like, oh, he's not on some Superman level stuff of like he's like invulnerable or something. It's like, I think he almost has, like, he's got superhuman strength and everything, but I think it's also that, obviously, once again, he's still figuring things out, but I think he can be stopped like a normal man. He's almost like a man, just, with extra abilities and stuff like that. So it's like Batman with a regenerative property, I guess. What I mean by that, in a sense, is like he's kind of, I guess Flash would be a better example, because Flash kind of has, like, at least based on the TV show, I assume this applies in the comic books too, but Flash has like a high healing rate because of his speed and everything. So I think that'd probably be a more apt description, because he can bleed like any normal human, just has superpowers on top of it. So nevertheless, I'm wondering to dig deeper into that connection, because like I said, because even at the end too, it don't seem like Susie like she gets sick and whatever. It's like, no, she looks like she's actually good, but I'm wondering, is that just like a temporary thing? Or is it because she made a connection with Alec, because he's stable, maybe it stabilized her? Like I said, I'm curious, is it just going to be them, or is it going to be other people that end up having a connection to Alec like that? Either way. So that's one side of things, which is really interesting. And I do appreciate at the end, it's like, oh, she can actually communicate with him. Because I think typically Swamp Thing can just naturally talk, but for right, I don't know if Alec actually spoke to her, or whether it was just kind of their psychic link. I mean, I think her saying he said his name was Alec, I'm like, I think that was probably just to make her not afraid, but like, no, hi, my name is Alec, so maybe, we'll see. Or maybe it is just telepathic for now until like he kind of gets fully readjusted and then he can speak. I think he didn't want to say anything because he saw the way Abby was looking at him, and it's like, you know, I don't want to freak her out more. Like, she probably won't believe me, so that's probably why he didn't say anything. Once again, the whole conversation is he's still trying to figure everything out himself. It's just kind of like, what the hell happened to me? I'm this monster and everything. So that's a lot to kind of process. So there's that type of thing going on. And then there's a real interesting thing. I like, because obviously, you know, Abby thinks there's more going on here, but a lot of people really don't. Like, it's interesting because, like, obviously the sheriff shows up, who is played by Jennifer Beals, which Jennifer Beals, a lot of stuff, whether it be, I think, like, Flashdance. I'm not that familiar with the movie, but I know that's one of the things she's best known for. The L Word is something I'm a lot more familiar with, you know, when it comes to her work. I think the most recent thing I want to say at least I'm aware that she had done was the short-lived Taken TV show. Like, I want to say that's the most recent thing I'm aware of she's done. Turns out she's actually Matt's mom. That was interesting. Because it almost seemed weird that she was almost kind of like, I mean, it seems like the people who had the biggest issue with her in town it seems like the Sunderlands, and then also seems like because I was about to say, like, the sheriff is like, oh, like, you know all about this swamp or something. I was like, what the hell does that mean? Well, then later on we see, like, she has a nightmare, and it looks like Shauna, like, grabs onto her and is calling out to her. It's like, okay, so I'm assuming Shauna drowned in the swamp, and that's probably what she was referencing, which, if that is the case, that's kind of a shitty thing to do. I mean, it's sad, too, because it's like, for her, it's like, it's been, like, 14 years, you know, since she's been home, apparently, you know. So, and also, but, you know, the sheriff is trying to protect Matt because, like, oh, like, I know that you've, you know, had a crush on her for such a long time. The fact is, that woman is a disaster. After this is all said and done, she's going to go back to Atlanta. The fact of the matter is, she doesn't want her son kind of getting his hopes up about the girl he's had feelings for such a long time and everything. Just, like, stick away from her and be careful, you know, type of thing, which is kind of like, it's even more sad because it's almost like oh, she's going in a swamp with you, watch your back type of thing. It almost seems like she's implying that, basically. That kind of sucks. But obviously we get conversations between Abby and Avery. Now that was kind of interesting because Avery's like, oh, the fact is, I don't blame you as much as, you know, Maria does. I should have been there for you. I should have stuck up for you when the time came, but I didn't want us to fight because obviously we just lost our daughter, so I just didn't want to take a chance I might lose her during all of that. But it's like, I lost, you know, I didn't just lose one daughter that day, I lost two because of all that. Like, it ended up pushing Abby away and made her leave Marie. Have I been saying Marie just now? Either way, Murray is what I meant to say. Obviously, you know, you could tell from Abby, you know, it's like, oh, it feels good to probably hear him say that because it's like, you know, this family, obviously, like, she has the deepest ties to because they were, you know, essentially her family. You know, Shauna was like a sister to her as well as her best friend, and it just, like, obviously this was, you know, like, you know, it almost probably feels like having your dad be like, it's all okay, I apologize for all the pain you went through. But Liz had warned Abby, it's like, he's a manipulator. The fact is, what he put you through last time. So I wonder what that was specifically. I guess, you know, because now he's apologizing and stuff, but now you look at it, you're like, it wasn't with the best of intentions. Because basically, you know, Abby's like, I want to, you know, check out Alex's lab, but he's like, oh, proprietary information, can't have the chance that might leak out or whatever. And she's like, you've always had a way of making no sound like a favor. And I'm like, and he's like, no matter how this ends, you know, I'll still always love you. And it's like, okay, it's like, you weren't saying this from the kindness of your heart. You were saying this because you were hoping to butter her up so that she would not look too deep into anything, because obviously you have a deep connection to all of this. And obviously, you know, I'm sure she's starting to kind of lean towards thinking like, you have something to do with all the stuff that's getting dumped out there. Potentially you might have something, might be connected to what happened to Alec. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, oh yeah, she is with the CDC, so you want her to stop investigating, so you're afraid of what she would find at Alec's place. And she even says it, she's like, if I were to get a court order, most likely all that proprietary information might be going in. And he's like, yeah, it might be. It's like, almost kind of like, we kind of understand each other, don't we? So it's like, showing that, already getting even more of that, like, oh, manipulative side of things. we meet Jason and his wife Caroline, because Jason's the one who made the accelerant, and we kind of get more context as to why it was supposed to be made. And I kind of figured as much. I knew it had to be about like, oh yeah, like making, apparently like plants grow faster, so there'd be, you know, stuff that they could use for medicines as well as cosmetics. But another aspect of it I didn't even think about was like, the plants grow rapidly, so they absorb more water of the, you know, so that there's more land to develop. That's an aspect of it I didn't really even consider, but I thought that was kind of interesting. But obviously you have Avery putting it bluntly like, you better figure this out, because whatever your situation is causing this accelerant, which is causing the spread of this disease. The fact of the matter is, it's gonna, if it leads back to me and crumbles everything around me, it's not just going to be me, it's going to be you and your wife that come crumbling down with me. So that's definitely interesting. Because Jason made it seem like it was like, there's no way my accelerant had anything to do with that. But to be fair, maybe it's the accelerant combined with what's in this swamp. Maybe the plants here naturally have this mutagen. Like I said, maybe it's kind of like, not necessarily that it is this, but maybe it kind of borderlines on like, what kind of like what's there in a metahuman. Maybe something like that similar is already in the plants. I kind of brought this up last episode. Maybe that's what the accelerant tapped into, and that's what's kind of making everything kind of, because once again, it's like this place is special. So even if it's not that, there might be something else in the swamp. It might have tapped into something that's been buried deep in Murray for a long time that just no one was aware of. That kind of lends itself into other stuff too, because obviously like you have everything with Maria going to Xanadu, because it's like she wants it, because I guess, you know, Xanadu had helped her previously with dealing with the whole Shauna situation, but for her it's like, I feel like she's still there. And the fact is that, you know, it's like obviously the pain of losing your only child is not something that can go away. Even Xanadu is like, you just find out a way to let it rest, but for her she can't. But the moment like Xanadu's trying to help her, it taps into something, like as Xanadu says, like the balance of light and dark is kind of off. And I guess maybe that has to deal with the swamp. Like maybe there was some kind of balance before, but because of everything else, like things have kind of gotten off balance. It makes you wonder, does this specifically have to do because like potentially because she drowned in the swamp, maybe that led to something happening to her. I'm assuming it's like, oh, like her body was pulled from the swamp, obviously. Or maybe it's a sad situation where they never were able to recover her body. I assume they found it, but I could be 100% wrong. If that's the case, maybe anything that's buried in that swamp, nothing, you know, and Murray may stay dead. There might be other, I don't know. Like, there's still a lot to kind of figure out about this whole situation. But the moment, like, Xanadu tapped into something, like, it's starting affecting both her and Maria. So, but then later on in the episode, we see Maria's laying in a bed and she opens her eyes, and laying right next to her is Shauna, but obviously it's Shauna in the form of like when she potentially drowned in the swamp and everything. So that's why I'm like, okay, so there's definitely not just like this science fictional thing of like the accelerant happening. There's definitely a supernatural side to this. Once again, it's like that might be, you know, what I was referring to earlier as like what was there in Murray. Maybe we want some type of thing of like, oh yeah, there's some like magical ley lines that like this Murray happens to be on top of, and the swamp is kind of imbued with that ley line energy, and it kind of taps into the more supernatural side of things. I mean, typically, I think Swamp Thing is kind of on that, like, with Swamp Thing's nature and everything, it probably lends itself more to the science fictional side, but there probably is that supernatural side as well, just because, I'm only saying that because I'm not that well versed in comic books, but I do know that Swamp Thing is a part of the Justice League Dark. I think that's more on the darker, more supernatural side of the DC universe type of things, because I know at least one of the other members in it is Constantine, which is interesting because Constantine is obviously currently on Legends of Tomorrow, and even this past season, you know, season 4, he even makes this reference to Swamp Thing. So that's what I'm kind of like, yeah, that's kind of in a similar vein in certain regards. So I'm curious. I think we're going to have like a clashing of like, you know, I mean, once again, that's the beauty of this universe, that there is the science fictional stuff, but there's also like the more magical supernatural side of things too. And it seems like we're definitely potentially going to get a mix of both in this. I mean, it might lend itself more to the supernatural than it does to science fiction, but I'd assume just because of what happened to Alec and this with the accelerant and stuff like that, I'd assume that lends itself more to the science fictional side of things. But we'll ultimately have to wait and see ultimately how everything ends up playing out, whether it be with the Woodrows themselves, as well as just everything that's going down in the swamp. Once again, I brought it up last episode, but I really appreciate the kind of like, it's so interesting because we're getting this show, like I said, like obviously it's more so focusing on the other characters, and obviously Swamp Thing's more of kind of like, he's the main part of the show, but it also seems like he's kind of more of the background thing, like I kind of figured he might be. I mean, once again, that could change later on, but what I also appreciate is like when we're dealing with the Swamp Thing stuff, it's almost like we're getting a first person view from like the monster, like, because like I said, it's got that horror movie setup of like, oh yeah, someone's out there alone, like everything with that dude that Swamp Thing ended up killing in this episode. It just feels like it's like oh no, watch out for the monster, but the monster is kind of a hero in this story. It makes you wonder, which on the side note, part of me, I mean, I assume like he kind of did that because he roared and everything, and then the plants proceeded to rip him apart and everything, but still. What I was wondering is, was that more so on his side of things? Was that him controlling the swamp, or was that the swamp kind of responding to how he was feeling like, I gotta protect, you know, Susie, so, you know, the swamp kind of reacted the way it did, or was that just 100% him? It makes you wonder, like, where the control currently stands. Is it, like, kind of a partnership, or is it more one-sided? Like, does it have more control? Does he have more control? Once again, it's that whole situation of trying to figure out what he's capable of and what he can do in conjunction with the swamp. It's just kind of an interesting thing in itself. I am very interested to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. If you are unaware, some kind of sad news has actually come out recently about Swamp Thing. Apparently after one episode, the show has been canceled. Obviously, if you've not read into it or listened to some people talk, I haven't read too much on it myself, but I have heard people discuss, like, it seems like it's not just one thing. There's like a multitude of things that led to its cancellation already, and I highly recommend, if you're curious, to read up on it or, you know, listen to people discuss it. But nevertheless, it's kind of sad news to hear that. I hope, obviously, that, you know, things will change. Obviously, we're getting this episode, so I'm assuming that means the rest of the season's still going to play out. So I really hope in between then and there some things change that allow for it. Like I said, the extenuating circumstances most likely make it so that that won't be a possibility, but I do hope that it can lead to, like, you know, some changes later on that will make it possible for the show to continue, because I'm really liking the show so far, and I'm very interested to see where it goes going forward, you know. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.